ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la la la. Please join me. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Lie, 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 ya la lie, 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 la lie, lie, ya lie, 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 ya lie, 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 ya lie, 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 ya la lie, 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 lie.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone,
Shabbat Shalom.
and welcome. We're going to begin our service with the lighting of Shabbat candles, which you can find on page 120 of the Siddur, of the prayer book. And it's my pleasure to invite Michelle Silverman to come forward.
Amen.
I thought it was going to pull it out, but it didn't. I think you're good. We're good. Please join us now on page 142 as we sing Shalom Aleichem, the traditional Shabbat melody that recognizes the arrival of Shabbat with all sorts of escorts of angels. That's page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boechem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
It's one thing to welcome Shabbat with a melody. It's another thing to welcome Shabbat with actual physical movement. On page 138, you will find Lecha Dodi, the 16th century poem, which in its last stanza invites us to rise and symbolically welcome the spirit of Shabbat into this sanctuary with us. So on that, when we get to number 9, we do 1, 2, 5, 9 verses. Please join us in rising if you're comfortable doing so and facing the door.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך Shabbat nekabela, likrat Shabbat, likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshavat chila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5, hitoreri, hitoreri, ki va'orech umiori, uri shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Shabbat nekabela.
Please rise.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha uvtzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, boi chala. Lecha Shabbat nekabela.
On page 144, we continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, the Reader's Kaddish, which will bring us under the leadership of the cantor into the main body of the service.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ויאמר דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בקלה, בקלה, ובזמן קריב הימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעלמי עמיה, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויפאר ותרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה ברכו, לעילם מכל ברכתה ושירתה, Tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran bi'alma v'himeru. Amen.
Let's continue together with a prayer that we say in the morning and the evening, all the different versions of it. On page 148, a prayer thanking God for nature. Please join me. Blessed are you, Adonai our God,
Ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzivaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim.
Page 150.
Ahavat olam bet Yisrael, amecha ahavta, amecha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, alekein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochveinu, uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla, ve'ahavatecha l'tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto, לעולם
Please be seated. And we continue with the V'ahavta on page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
And please join me at the top of 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot.
That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Mi chamocha paelim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norat eilot osef ele, norat eilot osef ele, malechutecha ra'uvanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zelianu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. ונאמר כי יפאר אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Let's join together in the middle of page 160. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace.
And raise us up, O guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. God, our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 162.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
On page 164, we've reached the center of our service, the Amidah, the portion that is said in a standing attitude. So please, on page 164, please rise and join us.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufia ki tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר, מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו משני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. And let's continue together at the top of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth.
May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
And at the top of 175, ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayers.
Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha v'yirah na'avod.
And the top of 177, please. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life,
wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Page 178, a prayer for peace.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol Shalom, ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim V'tov b'einecha levarech et amecha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה b'shlomecha. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
Baruch atah Adonai havarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai. You bless your people, Israel, and God willing, all people everywhere with peace. In such hopes, we continue our prayers silently.
ratzon imrei fi. Yihiu l'ratzon imrei fi. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart be acceptable before you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Oseh shalom b'meromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru.
On page 371 of the Siddur, you can find a modern setting for the tradition's ancient words, Mishaberach, for Refuah Shlema, a prayer for our friends and loved ones who could use a blessing for healing. We think especially this week of all the hostages who were released and their families. We think of the hostages who have not yet been released and their families. And we think of those who have been wounded in a variety of different clashes around the globe. We think of Amy Tolber, Ann Platt, Bill Ross, Bob Ratke, Bracha Bat Miriam, Charles Eisman, David Goldenholtz, Deidre Tischberg, Donald Netsky, Dorothy Price, Emily Baer, Fiona Powell, Gary Siegel, Genevieve Vermeulen, Herb Selden, Jennifer Gates, Jennifer Houston, Jim McDermott, and Karen McDermott, Kathy Manchero, Katie Pells Davis, Kevin Boland, Corey Konopka, Lawrence Evans, Lee Maxon, Leonore Friedman, Lucy Adams, Mark Eisman, Marcia Capullo, Marianne Gehrig, Marianne Resnick, Martha and Michael Ross, Michael Stillman, Michelle Jacoby, Mike Alvarado, Lucy Ramirez, Nechama Bat Benjamin Vesara, Pat Kester, Rivka Fegi Bat Phyllis, Roy Langlois, Rosie Resnick, Roz Flegel, Sally Ross, Sarah Bat Bessie Veben, Stella Schneider, Stephen Glickman, Susie Garrison, Therese Alvarado, Tom Federlin, Will Thompson, and Joseph Carrasco. If you're aware of others, and also Gary Sinclair. If you're aware of others who could use our prayers for healing, I ask you to hold them close to your heart as together we pray.
Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
This week's Torah portion is, I think, the shortest name of a Torah portion in the entire Torah. It's bo. It comes from the word lavo, which means to come. The force of it in this sentence in the Torah, though, is really go to Pharaoh. This is God telling Moses to yet again set out to have a perfectly infuriating conversation with Pharaoh, whether he is saying, no, 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 I will not let them go, or whether he's saying, okay, you can go, and then changing his mind 20 minutes later. Moses gets great points for stick-to-itiveness in all of this. It covers, this portion, the last of the plagues and Pharaoh's intransigence and his hardened heart. From an early age, and I can't say this about many Torah portions, but about this one, I've had a number of moral questions. The first is, if we all have free will, then why is God hardening Pharaoh's heart? That would seem to be replacing Pharaoh's agency with God's maneuvering. Well, the rabbis of old had a reasonable answer. They said, if you look at the first 5 of the plagues where it says that the heart was hardened, it actually, the first 5 say that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. And only thereafter, in the next 5, does it say that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. It's a sense of having set a path and then inertia having taken over. An illustration is found in Pirkei Avot, the sayings of our ancestors of the Talmud, mitzvah goreret mitzvah. If you do one deed, it leads to another good deed. If you transgress, it can lead to another transgression. So it's not that we don't have free will, it's just that we continuously are dedicated to choosing the wrong path. After a while, it gets harder and harder to break that pattern. Another question, though, I've always had about this portion is this. If Pharaoh, the true leader of Egypt, held up literally to be a god, was the one pulling all the strings, was the one really responsible for afflicting the Hebrews, the Israelites in Egypt, why is it that all the other Egyptians have to suffer the effects of the 10 plagues? What might Judaism have to say about the issue of collective responsibility and collective punishment? Well, it does seem from the very beginning that the plagues are a form of collective punishment that is somewhat unjust. Moses begs Pharaoh to free the Israelites from their bondage. And when Pharaoh says no, all of Egypt is punished over and over and over again, from blood all the way to the slaying of the firstborn. The medieval commentator Sforno said that the verse, quote, from the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the captive, which describes the scope of that last plague, is shorthand for a somewhat more loaded accusatory phrase. From the most guilty of the parties, Pharaoh, to the least guilty of the parties, the children of the captives who were sitting in the dungeon. Sforno's comment highlights the fact that those who were least guilty were neither in a position to enslave the Israelites initially, nor to free them in order to stop the plagues, yet they were punished collectively, with those, such as Pharaoh himself, who were really responsible. It was outright punishment of the innocent. Now, setting aside the fundamental question for another time of why innocent children should suffer the sins of their parents, why must the powerless slave woman suffer along with the all-powerful Pharaoh in the slaying of the firstborn? What possible sense can we make of this kind of collective punishment? Well, Rashi, the 11th century Torah commentator, sometimes I call him an explicator, Rashi always gives sort of the most direct, linear understanding of what's going on, and sets the Torah portion in the context of the rest of the Torah. and making some of those connections for us. But he's usually stays close to the mark. Well, here he circumvented the question, saying that the Egyptian slaves and captives lost their firstborn children in the plague because, quote, they too enslaved the Israelites and took joy in their suffering. According to Rashi, the plague of the firstborn was a punishment for every Egyptian who participated in the oppression of the Israelites, and thus it really wasn't collective punishment at all, with all of those unjust implications. Usually I feel better about Rashi than I do with that he didn't seem to really go very far. Another interpretation enables us to derive a lesson from the plagues while preserving the text's emphasis on the collective. Rather than unjustly targeting the innocent, we might say that the collective punishment teaches us about our collective responsibility to free the oppressed. It's sort of the flip side of the coin. Viewed through this lens, the plagues point to a wider circle of responsibility beyond one national or ethnic group. The Egyptians at the lower echelons of society were responsible for the wrongs dealt by the more powerful among them. Even the more so, they were held liable for the well-being of the minority in their midst, the Israelites. We can derive from this a powerful notion of collective responsibility that extends from each human being to all human beings. To be fair, this solution is not without its difficulties either. After all, why should I be responsible for the actions of others? Isn't it enough, really, to be responsible for my own actions and their repercussions? Am I responsible for the unfair detention of human rights activists in Zimbabwe or sex traffickers in Cambodia? What if I'm relatively powerless against those who are perpetuating injustice? Just how far does this responsibility extend? Well, I think in a perfect world, it extends and ultimately encompasses the entire world. Even though shouldering global responsibility is no small feat, the alternative, to know about horrific brutalities perpetrated against innocent people anywhere in the world and to do nothing, is itself untenable. The lack of this responsibility, the distancing of ourselves from the other, has allowed atrocities to take place without protest, which fits into the story of the Exodus in an interesting way. Even if one wanted to argue that the Egyptian servants and captives were unable to stop the enslavement of the Israelites, their silence was damning. Their punishment perhaps is a warning and message to us that to be silent in the face of injustice is to be implicated in the act itself. Even those of us who are far from being pharaohs in our lives have power that we can bring to bear in fighting injustice. We can heed the call to responsibility by working to ensure no one in our neighborhoods goes hungry, that all have adequate child care. We can call elected officials to demand a forceful response to oppressive regimes around the world. We can use our individual and collective economic clout by refraining from purchasing from companies that engage in unfair labor practices. We can vote for government officials who care about working families. Compared to the servant woman or captive in a dungeon in biblical Egypt, we are, by comparison, much closer to being Pharaoh. Along with that power, those of you who have watched, you know where this is going, Josh. What comes with power, Josh? Great responsibility, exactly. Along with that power does come a great responsibility, as there is always something that we can do to combat injustice. This message is one that is ringing loudly for me in a number of different ways this year. The first is still trying to formulate a response to what has happened in Gaza in the last year and a half. Having no particular affection for anyone who took part in the slaughter of October 7th, and There, nevertheless, even though we hope for a durable ceasefire now, I'm personally left still with questions. Was what happened overkill? Was it not? Now, were I Israeli and standing here talking to myself, I would say, well, you know, you don't know. We see things here, you don't see there. Your kid doesn't fight in the army, don't tell me what to do. That's an age-old conversation. But the reality is a little more complicated than that, because in this world, the fate of Jews everywhere is tied up with the fate of Jews everywhere, and that includes Israel. We have more standing in that conversation than sometimes we allow ourselves to have. And I'm asking these questions not to second-guess Israeli generals. I know bupkis when it comes to how to secure the boundaries of any particular area. And yet, when I read about the 10 plagues this week, I hope that they will, in the sense of rather than being a cause for despair or consternation, might be instead a spur to action. From the most powerful to the least, there's a role for each of us to play. And in a world in which anyone suffers for naught, we are all collectively and each individually responsible for doing what we can to stop the suffering. The one and only Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was really one for economy of language, put it this way: some are guilty, all are responsible. Must be the end because there's nothing on this last page. But a good sentiment to end on. We're going to take a moment to finish the service, first with the Aleinu, which you can find on page 586. And then we'll have a moment for the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. And then we'll have some announcements. And I'm going to say something now I have not said in this Gregorian calendar year yet. And I feel probably some people are fine with that. But let me say something I often say, which is that we like to think of ourselves as a warm and welcoming congregation, but that is actually a muscle that has to be exercised for it to be true. So when we've blessed the wine and made a motzi over the challah, on your way into the foyer and when you're inside, try to find somebody here who you don't know and introduce yourselves. That will go a long way to helping us achieve those goals. For now, page 586, please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Please turn to page 598, where you will find the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. We think especially this week of Liam Chezi, who was killed fighting in the West Bank just 2 days ago. And we are remembering Bob Sametz, actually, who is not quite laid to rest. That's going to happen this weekend. Dorothy Schmidt, who was laid to rest during the past month. And the following who died during the past year and have members of our congregation saying Kaddish for them in that year following the death. Larry Rector, Rhoda Silver, Bob Israel, James Ianni, Leo Weinschel, Myrna Grossman, Herb Bratt, Bill Nikud, Dick Kahn, Stanley Jolton, Robin Glickstein, Bob Lieb, Ali Kravitz, Marcia Fenson, Nancy Osterman, David Hestad, Gary Sobel, Chip Alberts, Hank Borkovitz, Jonathan Frank, and Stan Aronoff. And the following, whose yahrzeit or yearly anniversary of death falls this week: Margaret Edelstein, Stanley Aronoff, Hannah Rips Chaplin, Anna and Louis Chutko, Lee Fenson, Dodie Freschel, Art Friedman, Sam Gordon, Clarabelle Hamilton, Frank Heilbrunner, Louis Jacobs, David Jacobs, Joseph Kaplan, Roni Klein, Rosalie Lavin, Saul Aaron Levine, Michael Myron Lewis, Sidney Mendelson, Alan Polachek, Jesse Rosenfeld, Alan Sampson, Elliot Shafton, Beverly Shapson, Thomas St. John, Jean Stark, Harry Stein, Ruth Semmerman, and Jack Wine. If there's anyone here who is mourning the recent passing of a friend or loved one, or a yahrzeit anniversary of a loved one's death whose name I didn't mention, I ask you please to share those names aloud with us so that we can join together in a community of support. Let's continue with Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah Ve'alma divrach chedoteh v'yamlich malchuteh V'chayechon v'yomechon V'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael V'agalah u'v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal Shemei d'kudashah b'richu Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu yaseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
May the source of peace who makes peace in the highest heavens enable us to learn how to make peace here on earth. And may God share with those in mourning a measure of consolation and comfort. And together we say,
Amen.
And please be seated. All but you, Jean.
Good Shabbos. My name is Jean Pirla Strauss, and I am a member of the Board of Congregation Sinai. I'm also chair of our Social Justice Committee and a member of our women's group at Nashim and the Women of Sinai. So if you're new here and have any questions about any of these groups, please come see me. Always willing to talk about all the things I love. Tonight's Beam of Flowers are sponsored by Lori Fisher in memory of Lee Fenson. We're grateful for the contributions made this week to our Sinai community in memory of Dorothy Schmidt, Stanley Aronoff, Arthur Friedman, Rose Geller, and David Jacob. Join us for the following upcoming programs: Achenu, a men's spirituality group gathering Sunday, February 2nd at 8:30 at Sinai. Contact Mitch Colton for more information. Enjoy a cup of coffee with the clergy and sages on Friday, February 7th at 11 a.m. at St. John's on the Lake. And that information is also in the e-news for location information. Sample an array of Middle Eastern cuisine at a communal Shabbat dinner on Friday, February 7th. Services are at 6 p.m. and dinners at 7:15 p.m. Please register via the e-news. 5 Easy Pieces, a brief survey of the most important eras in Jewish history. That's a talk with Rabbi David Cohn on Sunday, February 9th, March 2nd at 10 a.m., and you can register via Shul Cloud. And just so you know, if anybody has any problems with Shul Cloud, the office is very willing to help you and walk you through it. It's new for all of us. It's time to brew for Purim and the Sinai Flight Night. For those of you that don't know, we have several members of our synagogue who are great at microbrews. And so we're going to have a night where they are sampling the microbrews that they've made. So that's Join Sinai Brewing, Sunday, February 9th, 9 a.m. And then you can email Gordy or Allen for more information. The Women of Sinai, actually, it's not, well, for the Women of Sinai. It's not the Women of Sinai, sorry. For the Women of Sinai, Brit Nashim, that's one of our women's groups. We meet monthly, and we're having our meeting on the 10th of February at 7 o'clock, and you can contact Toby Coton or Joanne Robertson. Joanne is here tonight for more information. I can actually tell you about this meeting because Mary Wurzberg, who is also here tonight, and myself and Penny Hool are leading it. And we are having a member from Pathfinders come and talk to us about food insecurity and also the homelessness community of our youth. Pathfinders Milwaukee serves youth ages 11 to 25, and actually children younger because some of those youth have children. And so they provide shelter and food and social services, and that's part of our social justice. But for Brit Nashim, we're going to be making sandwiches and a very, very, very healthy, hearty lunch because Jewish women do not want children to go hungry, as we all know. So there'll be a very hearty lunch for all these kids and learning more about Pathfinder. So please, anyone who's interested in Brit Nashim, seek one of us out. We're happy to tell you about Brit Nashim. Oh boy, it's a good night for me. The Social Justice Committee. Monday, February 17th is our next meeting at 5:15. This meeting will be in person. Normally, we do have that remotely, but we're having a board meeting afterward, so we will be having that in person. We've got a lot of really great activities coming up that we're very passionate about. We're having our reproductive Shabbat, which will be on February 21st, and we're really excited. Ellie Kliegman, who is a member of our congregation, will be speaking about access to abortion and reproductive health in Wisconsin. She is a medical director. She's executive director, opening up a clinic this upcoming year, and we're very excited for her to come speak with us. We're going to be having a potluck, so come join us. That services will be in person as well as live stream, but you don't want to miss the potluck. For any of the information about any of this, there's the e-news that comes out every Tuesday and Friday, and it's very informative. And I guess I just want to encourage you to go to the bottom, because there are a lot of things that we see all the things that are the top hits, kind of like on our Facebook page or the other pages. Go to the bottom because there are a lot of other programs and activities that are coming up later in the month that you don't want to miss out. So again, happy to see everyone and welcome to anyone who's new. Thank you.
So, Cantor, I have a question.
Oh,
I was thinking, as Jean was talking about Pathfinders, when I was growing up, if I wouldn't finish what was on my plate, my mother would threaten to put it in a package and send it to Bangladesh. I think George Harrison's album that was a fundraiser for Bangladesh had just come out. What did they say in England?
I mean, there's no shortage of places that need a food, but
Was there a regular place, though?
no,
No?
not for us.
I'm going to ask your mother. Please rise. We're on page 123, and join the cantor in the Kiddush, the blessing over Friday night wine, and the sweetness of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahavahu v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrai kodesh, Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim, Kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava u'v'ratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim.
Please join us in the Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
See you inside. A little salty? A little frozen? Now that I'm thinking, your name must be Afra. Not very good.
I went to
But it was, my parents, it was, you know, for my parents' generation, it was starving on news. It was, so whoever was suffering at that time. And who are you going to put through? That's very funny.
This is the cashier. It was
I don't know.